I always thought I understood what it meant to be invisible. Growing up in a family that seemed to have no place for me, I learned to stay in the background, to try and fade into the corners of rooms where my mom's cold gaze couldn't reach. But nothing had prepared me for the moment she looked me dead in the eyes and told me I wasn't welcome at her 55th birthday party. "You're a disappointment," she said, her voice flat. The words hit me like a slap, sharp and final. I had always tried my best, spent years overachieving, bending over backwards, but nothing was ever enough for her. It was as if I didn't exist in her world, just a shadow walking through it, unnoticed. That night, the sting of her words felt heavier than ever. I stood outside her house, my heart beating painfully in my chest, wondering how I had gotten here. And then I saw it, the box. It was wrapped in glossy paper, tucked under the stoop, almost as if it had been waiting for me. It wasn't just any gift, it was the gift. The one my mother had always wanted, the one I had secretly saved up for months to buy, hoping it would prove to her that I was worthy. A luxury, a symbol of success, something she couldn't ignore. And for the first time in my life, I felt an overwhelming surge of power. What I didn't realize was that this simple gesture, a gift, would alter everything. It would force my mother to confront a side of me she had refused to see, and in doing so, it would shake the foundation of our family forever. Growing up, I was always the afterthought. My older brother, Luke, was the golden child, the perfect student, the athlete everyone admired. And then there was Jessica, my older sister, who seemed to effortlessly win the affection of everyone she met. She was always the life of the party, the one people turned to when they needed someone to cheer them up. I, on the other hand, was just there. I never quite fit in. No matter how hard I tried, I never seemed to stand out. It was never overt. No one ever told me I was a failure, but the difference between me and my siblings was always palpable. My mom made sure of that. She praised Luke endlessly for his grades, his ambition, and his perfect smile. She showered Jessica with love for her charm, her social grace, and her ability to make everything look effortless. But me, I was just, okay, mediocre at best. I remember when I brought home my first B in math, something that felt like a major accomplishment for me, but my mom barely acknowledged it. She glanced at the paper and said, "Maybe next time you can be more like Luke." It wasn't even about the grades, it was about the constant comparison. I worked hard, maybe harder than anyone else in the family, but it never seemed enough. Every success I had was overshadowed by the expectations set for me, expectations I could never quite meet. My siblings were flawless in my mother's eyes, but I was always a step behind, always striving to prove I mattered, and it became clear to me that no matter how much I gave, I would never be the one who earned her true approval. I remember the night it all came to a head. We were sitting around the dinner table, as we always did, and I couldn't help but feel like I was invisible. Luke was going on about his latest promotion, another win in his already perfect career. Jessica was bragging about her latest charity event, recounting every little detail like it was the most important thing in the world. My mom was sitting there, smiling, glowing with pride as she praised them both endlessly. It was the same routine. I had seen it countless times, but that night, something inside me snapped. I had spent years sitting in the background, listening to their stories, quietly hoping that one day someone might ask me about my life, about my accomplishments. But it never happened. My mom never seemed to care. She didn't even look at me when I tried to join the conversation. I was halfway through telling them about the promotion I had just gotten at work. Nothing huge, but still something I was proud of. When my mom interrupted me, her eyes still on Luke. "That's nice, Sarah," she said in a distracted tone, before turning back to Luke's achievements, like I hadn't even spoken. I felt the anger rise in my chest, a hot, burning wave. It was too much. For years I had tried to prove myself to be enough, but it never mattered. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping across the floor. "Why can't you ever be proud of me?" I shouted, my voice shaking with emotion. "Why does it always have to be about Luke and Jessica? What about me? Why am I never good enough?" The room went silent. My mom's face froze, her mouth slightly open, as if she couldn't believe what I was saying. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet, invisible daughter. I was the one demanding attention. And even though I was shaking, I felt something deep inside me break free. It wasn't just frustration anymore, it was something else, something stronger. A few weeks before my mom's big 55th birthday, I saw something that made my stomach drop. I was scrolling through my phone, absent-mindedly checking social media, when I came across a post from my cousin, Sarah. She was dressed in a stunning green dress, her face radiant with a smile that seemed too bright, almost forced. The caption read, "Excited for Aunt Margaret's 55th birthday bash." My heart skipped a beat. Aunt Margaret, my mom. I froze, staring at the picture, trying to process what I was seeing. The party was coming up soon, but I hadn't heard a word about it from my mom, not even a casual mention. The silence between us had only grown in recent months, but this felt like the ultimate rejection. I tried to push the feeling aside, telling myself it couldn't be true. Maybe I wasn't invited yet. Maybe there was just some sort of mistake. But deep down, I knew better. I called her, my fingers trembling as I dialed the number. She answered on the second ring, her voice cool, almost detached. "Erica, what is it?" she asked, sounding like she was in the middle of something. "Mom," I said, trying to steady my voice, "why didn't you tell me about the party?" There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. I could almost hear her thinking, weighing whether or not she should say it. When she finally spoke, her words sliced through me like a blade. "I didn't invite you," she said flatly. "I don't want you there." The shock hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind raced to find something, anything, that could explain it, but all I could do was stand there, stunned by the depth of her rejection. I stood there, clutching the phone, my mind racing. I had to know the truth, had to hear it from her lips, even though I already knew. My hands were shaking as I held the phone, and I felt the cold weight of her words hanging over me. "What do you mean you don't want me there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause on the other end, long enough for me to wonder if she was going to take it back, if she would apologize and tell me it was all a mistake. But when she finally spoke, her words were sharp and deliberate, like they had been rehearsed for years. "This party is for people who have made something of themselves, Erica. You don't fit in. You're not the type of person I want around these important people." I felt the world tilt. My chest tightened, and I had to grip the counter just to stay upright. My throat closed up, the words caught in my chest like rocks. "I'm your daughter," I said, my voice cracking as I struggled to hold back the tears. "How can you say that?" She didn't even hesitate. It was as if she had said it 1,000 times before, as if it didn't even matter. "The twins are invited, of course. They've got degrees, careers. They fit in." The air felt suffocating, like everything around me was closing in. I had always known she saw them as more successful, more polished, but hearing it out loud from her, hearing her speak those words with such indifference, made my blood run cold. It was as though, in her eyes, I was a failure, nothing more than an afterthought, an inconvenience. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. How could I even ask the questions I needed to ask, knowing that doing so could shatter whatever fragile connection we had left? My heart pounded in my chest, but in that moment, something in me broke. I had spent my whole life trying to earn her love, trying to prove I was worthy. But now I realized the truth. I would never be enough for her. That conversation left me reeling. The sting of her words echoed in my mind, drowning out everything else. For the first time, I realized that my entire life had been spent trying to meet impossible standards, trying to earn my mother's love and approval. But no matter what I did, no matter how much I pushed myself, I would never be good enough for her. I had always known that she favored my siblings. Luke, the golden boy, always did everything right. Jessica, the charming one, effortlessly won everyone's affection. But this felt different. This wasn't just about chores or grades or accomplishments. It wasn't about me failing to live up to her expectations. This was a total rejection of who I was, of everything I had worked for, of the person I had spent my entire life trying to be. The unfairness of it hit me like a wave. All these years, I had bent myself into shapes I didn't even recognize, trying to fit into a mold that would make her proud. But now I saw it clearly. My mother's love wasn't something I could earn. It wasn't about what I did or how hard I tried. She had already made up her mind about me. I had spent so much time trying to prove I was worthy, but in the end, she had always seen me as less. And somehow, that realization hurt more than all the rejection I had felt before. I could have stayed home, wallowing in self-pity, letting my mother's rejection consume me, but I wasn't going to let her define me anymore. I wasn't going to let her think she could just toss me aside as if I didn't matter. No, I was done being the invisible daughter. I was going to show her that I didn't need her approval to be someone of worth. I needed to take control of the situation, to prove to myself that I could rise above it. I thought long and hard about what I could do, something bold, something that would make her see me in a way she never had before. Then it hit me. I would buy her a gift, but not just any gift. It had to be meaningful, something that would show her I was capable of making my own decisions, something that would prove I had value, regardless of what she thought. After hours of searching, I found it, a vintage pearl necklace. It was exquisite, delicate, yet timeless. The necklace had been passed down through generations of women in our family, each one carrying the weight of history, strength, and resilience. It was everything my mother had always valued, and yet it symbolized something more than that. It was a gift that would carry my own meaning. It wasn't just about honoring tradition. It was about reclaiming my place in our family's legacy. When I bought it, I knew I was taking a risk. But this was my moment to reclaim my self-respect. This wasn't about getting my mother's approval. It was about proving to myself that I could stand tall with or without her. The day of my mom's birthday arrived, and despite knowing I wasn't invited, I couldn't stay away. I had made up my mind. I was going to walk in, face the consequences, and take control of my own narrative. My heart pounded as I approached the venue, the party already in full swing. The laughter and chatter of her guests drifted through the air. But I was focused on one thing. I needed to confront her, to prove that I mattered. As I stepped inside, I could feel every eye in the room on me. My breath caught in my throat. The polished guests, the elegant decorations, the sense of belonging I was never part of, it all felt overwhelming. But I pushed forward, ignoring the stares, walking straight toward my mom, who was standing at the entrance, greeting her friends. "Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the nerves twisting in my stomach, "I brought you something." She turned to me, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, but she didn't say anything. I reached into the bag I was holding and handed her the vintage pearl necklace. It was delicate, the kind of piece that would have meant something to her, something she could never ignore. "This is for you," I continued, my voice stronger now. "It's a reminder that I am worthy, even if you don't think so." The room fell silent. For a moment, nobody moved. My mother stared at the necklace, her expression unreadable. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I waited for her reaction, unsure of what would come next. Would she lash out? Would she finally say something, anything, or would this gesture be the turning point I had hoped for? For a long moment, my mother said nothing. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, as if the entire room was holding its breath. Then, slowly, she reached for the necklace. Her fingers trembled as she touched the delicate pearls, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes, something I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was realization, but it was there, a flicker of acknowledgement, something I had never seen before. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The weight of the gesture hung between us, and in that moment I realized it wasn't about her accepting my gift. It was about me accepting myself. I didn't need her validation anymore. But the way she looked at the necklace, the way she lingered over it, told me that I had made her see me, not as the failure she always labeled me, but as someone who deserved respect. That night, she didn't speak to me directly, but there was a subtle shift in the air. The way the guests treated me was different. No one pointed fingers or whispered behind my back. For once, I wasn't invisible. My mother didn't offer a grand apology, but the change in her eyes, the brief flicker of understanding, spoke volumes. It wasn't the reconciliation I had dreamed of, but it was a start. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to fight for my place in the family. I had already claimed it. That night, everything changed. As I walked out of the party, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had finally taken control of my life, and that sense of empowerment was far more powerful than anything my mother could ever give me. For the first time, I understood that my worth wasn't tied to her approval, or anyone else's for that matter. Sometimes you don't need validation to be happy. You don't need someone to tell you that you're good enough. You just have to believe it for yourself. My journey toward self-empowerment had only just begun. I realized that the only approval I truly needed was my own. And though the road ahead might still be difficult, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer waiting for someone else to define who I was. I had already done that for myself,